菜根谭
Tending the roots of wisdom.
161，道乃公正无私，学当随时警惕。
161. The Tao is impartial and selfless. In learning, one should remain vigilant at all times.
菜根谭原文：道是一众公众物事，当随人而接引；学是一个寻常家范，当随事而警惕。
白话文注解：道事关大众且影响重大，应该顺着个人品性的不同而适当引导。而做学问就像每个人吃家常饭那样普遍，应该随着事物的变化保持警觉。
161-1. Matters of the Tao concern the masses and hold significant influence. They should be guided in accordance with individuals' diverse dispositions. On the other hand, academic pursuits are as commonplace as everyday meals, and should be approached with vigilance as circumstances evolve. Translated by Bayan Defu.
161-2. The Tao is a public kind of matter that relates to people individually as guidance. Learning is a common household sort of inquiry that relates to things at every turn. Translated by Robert Aitken Daniel W. Wyckoff. 161-3. The Tao is something that concerns all people. Different people need different guidance. Study is like everyday homely fare. A man should strive to enhance his understanding of different subjects according to actual circumstances. Translated by Paul White.
161-4. The Tao concerns the public and has significant impact, so it should be appropriately guided in accordance with the different characters of individuals. On the other hand, pursuing academic knowledge is as common as everyone having regular meals at home, and one should remain vigilant in response to changes in things. Translated by Wen Lin.
162，信人事己之诚，疑人嫌己之诈。
162. Trust others to reveal your sincerity. Doubt others to display your own cunning.
菜根谭原文：信人者，人未必尽诚，己则独诚矣；疑人者，人未必皆诈，己则先诈矣。
白话文注解：相信别人的人，尽管别人未必都很诚实，但是起码自己却先做到了诚实。怀疑别人的人，别人虽然未必都在欺诈，但是自己已经开始自欺了。
162-1. Those who trust others, even though others may not always be honest, at least have demonstrated their own honesty. Those who doubt others, even though others may not always be deceitful, have already become deceitful themselves. Translated by Bayan Defu.
162-2. If you trust someone who has not yet fully shown complete sincerity, then you are the one who is sincere. If you distrust someone who is not yet clearly a complete fraud, then you are the fraud. Translated by Robert Aitken Daniel W. Wyckoff. 162-3. He who has faith in others must be himself an honest man, even though others may not be all honest. He who is suspicious of others must have some dishonest ideas himself, even though others may not be all dishonest. Translated by Paul White.
162-4. Those who trust others, even though others may not always be honest, have at least practiced honesty themselves. Those who doubt others, even though others may not always be deceptive, have already started self-deception. Translated by Wen Lin.
163，春风郁物，朔雪沙生。
163. Spring breeze nurtures life, while the early snowfall is harsh and deadly.
菜根谭原文：念头宽厚的，如春风煦育，万物遭之而生；念头饥渴的，如朔雪阴凝，万物遭之而死。
白话文注解：一个胸襟宽宏厚道的人，就好比温暖的春风化育万物，万物遇到他就会生机盎然；一个胸襟狭隘刻薄的人，如冰雪般冷酷无情，万物遇到他就会凋零衰亡。
163-1. A person with a broad and generous mind is like a warm spring breeze nurturing all things, causing them to flourish. When things encounter such a person, vitality abounds. On the other hand, a person with a narrow and mean-spirited mind is as cold and harsh as ice and snow, causing things to wither and decline upon encountering them. Translated by Bayandefu.
163-2, a generous and trustworthy mind is like a spring breeze that warms and enlivens. The 10,000 beings encountering it thrive. An oblivious and stingy mind is like snows of the north that darken and freeze. The 10,000 beings encountering it die. Translated by Robert Aitken Daniel W. Wyckoff. 163-3, a man of magnanimity is like the spring zephyr, which warms and enlivens all things. A jealous man is as bleak as the blizzard, which blights everything it comes into contact with. Translated by Paul White.
163-4. A person with a broad and generous mind is like a warm spring breeze nurturing all things, bringing vitality wherever it goes. On the other hand, a person with a narrow and mean-spirited mind is as cold and ruthless as ice and snow, causing withering and decline wherever they go. Translated by Wen Lin.
164. 善根暗长，恶损前消。
164. Good deeds quietly grow, while evil tendencies gradually diminish.
菜根谭原文：为善不见其益，如草里冬瓜，自应暗长；为恶不见其损，如庭前春雪，当必前消。
白话文注解：做好事一时看不出有什么增益，但是善人的成就，像草丛中的冬瓜，自然会悄悄长大；做坏事一时看不出有什么损失，但是恶人的霸业，就像春天院里的积雪，时候到了必然的会暗暗融化消亡。
164-1. Performing good deeds might not yield immediate benefits, yet the accomplishments of virtuous individuals are like watermelons growing quietly amidst the grass. They will naturally thrive. Engaging in wrongful acts might not show immediate consequences, yet the ill-gotten gains of wicked individuals are akin to the snow that accumulates in the courtyard during spring. When the time comes, they will inevitably melt away in obscurity. Translated by Bayandefu.
164-2. A good deed with no apparent benefit is like the melon in the grass, growing quietly unseen. A bad deed with no apparent injury is like the spring snow in the front yard, thawing away unnoticed. Translated by Robert Aitken and Daniel W. Wyckoff. 164-3. The benefit accruing from good deeds may not be immediately apparent, but the fruit of benevolence is like a melon in the grass, it grows without being noticed. The consequences of evil deeds may not be clear at first, but the hegemony of the wicked will surely melt away like spring snow in the courtyard. Translated by Paul White.
164-4. Doing good may not yield immediate benefits, but the accomplishments of a virtuous person are like a watermelon growing quietly in the grass. They will naturally develop over time. Similarly, committing wrongdoing may not show immediate losses, but the ill-gotten gains of a wicked person are like accumulated snow in the spring yard. They are destined to silently melt away and vanish at the right time. Translated by Wen Lin.
165. 后代故交，礼遇衰朽。
165. Treat old friends generously and show respect even to those in decline.
菜根谭原文：遇故旧之交，义气要愈新；处隐微之事，心计宜愈显；待衰朽之人，恩礼当愈隆。
白话文注解：遇到多年不见的老友时，情谊要愈加真诚；处理某种机密事情时，居心要愈加坦诚；对待年迈力衰的老人，要愈加殷勤周到。
165-1. When meeting an old friend after many years, your affection should be even more sincere. When dealing with confidential matters, your intentions should be increasingly transparent. When interacting with elderly people who are frail and feeble, your care and attentiveness should be even more considerate. Translated by Bayandefu.
165-2. When entertaining friends from old times, you will be all the more renewed in spirit. When dealing with private matters, your intentions will be all the more manifestly open. When meeting people well past their prime, you will be all the more generously kind and courteous. Translated by Robert Aitken Daniel W. Wyckoff. 165-3, when meeting an old friend, your feelings should be even more tender than before. In handling esoteric matters, you should be more magnanimous and fair-minded than before. When meeting the old and frail, you should be extra courteous and respectful. Translated by Paul White.
165-4. When meeting an old friend after many years, the emotions should be increasingly sincere. When dealing with confidential matters, the intentions should be increasingly open and honest. When treating elderly people who are frail and aging, one should be increasingly attentive and considerate. Translated by Wen Lin.
166. 君子以勤俭立德，小人以勤俭图利。
166. A noble person establishes virtue through diligence and frugality, while a base person employs diligence and frugality solely for personal gain.
菜根谭原文：勤者敏于得义，而世人借勤以济其贫；俭者淡于获利，而世人假俭以示其吝。君子持身之福，反为小人营私之具矣。昔在
白话文注解：勤奋是尽心尽力在品德和义理上下功夫，可是一般人却都凭借勤奋来解决自己的穷困；简朴是把财货和利益看得很淡薄，可是一般人却假借简朴来掩饰自己的吝啬。勤奋和简朴本来是有德君子立身处世的信条，不料反倒成为市井小人盈利徇私的工具，说来也真是令人感到惋惜。
166-1. Diligence involves putting in heartfelt effort to cultivate virtue and righteousness. Yet many people merely use diligence as a means to alleviate their poverty. Frugality entails having a detached attitude towards wealth and gains. Yet many people use frugality as a cover for their stinginess. Diligence and frugality were originally principles for the noble-minded to establish themselves and navigate the world. Unexpectedly, they have become tools for the petty-minded in the marketplace to profit and pursue self-interest. It is indeed regrettable to see this transformation. Translated by Bayan Defu.
166-2, for a diligent person, diligence is a matter of integrity, but for worldly people, it is an expedient to avoid poverty. For a thrifty person, thrift is a matter of living simply, but for worldly people, it is a cover to embellish stinginess. Thus talismans upheld by noble people are converted by the small-minded to materialistic tricks. How lamentable, translated by Robert Aitken Daniel W. Wyckoff. 166-3, the truly hard-working man strives to improve his nature and virtue. But there are some people who are diligent simply in order to escape from poverty. Truly thrifty people are indifferent to wealth and selfish gain. But there are some people who utilize thrift to disguise their own niggardliness. How lamentable it is that what a virtuous man uses for self-cultivation should be abused by blackguards as tools for self-enrichment. Translated by Paul White.
166-4. Diligence involves putting in wholehearted effort in matters of character and righteousness. However, most people rely on diligence to overcome their poverty. Frugality entails regarding wealth and benefits with indifference. But many individuals use frugality as a cover for their stinginess. Diligence and frugality were originally principles for virtuous individuals to establish themselves in the world. Unfortunately, they have become tools for opportunistic individuals in the marketplace, leading to a sense of regret. Translated by Wen Lin.
167. 学贵有恒，道在物真。
167. Learning requires persistence, and the essence of the Tao lies in realizing the truth.
菜根谭原文：凭异性作为者，随作则随止，岂是不退之伦？从情识解物者，有物则有迷，终非长明之灯。
白话文注解：一个凭一时感情冲动去做事的人，等到这5分钟热度一过，事情也就跟着停顿下来，这哪里是能维持长久奋发上进的做法呢？一个从情感出发去领悟真理的人，即便有所悟，也会被感情所迷惑， 这种做法终归不是指路的永久明灯。
167-1. An individual who acts based on momentary emotional impulses will find that once the initial enthusiasm fades, their efforts come to a halt. This approach lacks the sustainability needed for long-term progress and diligence. Similarly, a person who seeks to comprehend truth solely through emotions will ultimately be clouded by those very emotions, making their path akin to a temporary guiding light rather than a permanent beacon of enlightenment. Translated by Bayan Defu.
167-2. The one who relies on whims and acts without being grounded will take up projects and abandon them arbitrarily. How can there be progress? The one who depends on emotional perceptions in seeking realization finds delusion instead. That is hardly the lamp that burns eternally. Translated by Robert Aitken Daniel W. Wyckoff. 167-3. People who do things upon impulse are likely to stop doing things upon impulse. How can they make steady progress? A man whose comprehension is based merely upon feelings is just as likely to be deceived as to gain wisdom. For him, there is no such things as a constantly lit lamp. Translated by Paul White.
167-4. A person who acts on momentary emotional impulses. When the fleeting passion subsides, the actions also come to a halt. This is not a sustainable approach for long-term diligence and progress. Similarly, someone who seeks to understand the truth solely through emotions, even if they gain insights, may be misled by their feelings. Such an approach is not a permanent guiding light for the journey. Translated by Wen Lin.
168. 律己宜严，待人宜宽。
168. Be strict with yourself and lenient with others.
菜根谭原文：人之过恶一数，而在己则不可恕；己之困辱宜忍，而在人则不可忍。
白话文注解：别人的过失和错误应该多加宽恕，可是自己的过失和错误却不可以宽恕。自己受到屈辱应该尽量忍受，可是别人受到屈辱就要设法替他消解，不可怠慢。
168-1. The faults and mistakes of others should be forgiven generously. Yet one's own faults and mistakes should not be overlooked. When facing humiliation oneself, it is wise to endure it. But when others are humiliated, efforts should be made to help them alleviate it, without neglecting their feelings. Translated by Bayan Defu.
168-2. I should tolerate the excesses and mistakes of others without objection, but never my own. I should put up with my own humiliation and disgrace, but never those of others. Translated by Robert Aitken Daniel W. Wyckoff. 168-3. We should forgive the transgressions of others, but not those of ourselves. We should be patient in the face of our own sufferings and humiliations, but not in the face of those inflicted upon others. Translated by Paul White.
168-4. The faults and mistakes of others should be forgiven generously. But one's own faults and mistakes should not be excused. When personally enduring humiliation, it's advisable to bear it patiently. Yet when others face humiliation, one should strive to help alleviate it and not be indifferent. Translated by Wen Lin.